choosing to look at and to be critical so that we can, in my opinion, ultimately shift our culture. And the importance of looking, I think, is about to become abundantly clear in the works that we're about to see. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marissa, who will be driving our PowerPoint today.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So happy that we're all have a space to come together, even if it is this online world. I'm going to share my screen with you all and keep letting people into the meeting. So the idea for this show came to me in about March, just after the pandemic was declared and we went online. I think, you know, students, as well as professors and everyone in the world was feeling shock and anxiety and confusion and really also a lack of motivation and what is happening in the world. And these are some early works that came out of a class that spawned the idea. I began to, as a professor, think about artists who have made work under dying and trying circumstances, whether it's isolation or times of peril and discontent in their own countries. And I started to show students of photographers such as Joseph Sudek, who made an entire book from his studio window, and even Lee Friedlander, who made a book, Bedbound. So these are some early works that came to the class, and I really just started to see students beginning to look not only at themselves, but at the world around them. And it even caused me to start thinking about the early works in photography, how arguably the first photograph ever made was made by Joseph Nicephore Niepce in his own home. And after many conversations with Josh, where he and I met in the town that we both live in, the exhibit began to evolve and take form. And I thank you, Josh, for the direction and also the aesthetic that you helped to imbue the exhibit with. Originally, the exhibit was going to be about COVID, but as the events of the year continued to unfold, Josh and I realized that it was a much bigger event and there was much more to say. This is the text from the exhibit, and I'm going to read it before beginning to introduce and hear from a variety of artists that we've asked to speak. And I will also say that if you're here and you'd like to speak about your work, just raise your hand and you'll have a moment to do so. The world abruptly stopped as the cataclysmic coronavirus took hold. In that moment of pause, it became clear that there was an arguably an even larger pandemic that may have had previously been unable to see. This moment had functioned as a time for us to reflect on where we are as a nation and a call to action for real and meaningful change. For our community at Purchase isn't an opportunity to define our future. Featuring over 230 works and 63 artists from the community, both students and faculty, 2020 Views, Seeing Through Uncertainty raises the questions we have been looking for and rests in the answers that we hope to find. It is a look at this moment in time, the environment we live in, and the future we are forming. So as I mentioned, we're going to hear from a select group of artists, but if you're here, we encourage you, the way that the slideshow is going to go is largely in alphabetical order. And if I may introduce our first artist, Avra Hammerschlag. Avra, are you here?
I am here.
Hi, welcome.
I'd like to start off by thanking Marissa and Josh. I can't imagine putting on, I mean, I know that there's the physical exhibit and also curating it online. I can't imagine all the work that's gone into coordinating both. So I'd like to thank you both. I have two photographs. This one is called Eerie Exploration. And I actually brought the little guy being featured. And to give you some scale, here is a stick of Orbit gum, if I can hold on to it. And here is the actual miniature. When I make miniatures, because I can't draw, I have all these scenes in my head and I try and make them. Unfortunately, they never come out the way I envision them. And even when I've tried to rethink, all right, I'm going to have to reposition them, and I spend time playing around with them. Most of the time, they're results of happy accidents. And these are 2 examples. And this one's called Existential Reflection. And I was in Marissa's class in the spring semester. And as the TA put it, you can just hear the violin playing.
Thank you so much, Abra.
Thank you.
Next, we have work by Agustina Marquez. These are a few stills, and I will make this PowerPoint available and this lecture online if you want to watch the videos at a later date. But Augustina's work is really, from what I've looked at, a lot about recurring characters, comes from her own dreams, memory, and imagination, and exploration of the self. And that is the piece. Alexander Atkinson is the next artist. I think at first glance, this could be an image made really at any time, an empty fairy, but I start to see that mask creep out from the person's face. And here are some more works by Alexander. Chaz, 2020, and After the Storm from this summer. The next artists that I'd love to introduce are Robert Swainston and Zorawar Sidhu, who made Essential Services.
Hi, everybody. Zorawar, are you here? Maybe it's just me. I'm very happy to see everybody.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on? Do you want to tackle this? So Zorawar and I have been working together for a couple years on various projects, and this is one of the first ones that we've shown publicly. Zorawar, do you want to pick it up, or do you want me to try to explain it a little bit?
I'll take a crack at it. Well, we've been collaborating on woodcuts for quite a while, and we were kind of beginning a new project around the same time that we noticed all of the plywood going up all over Lower Manhattan during the protests in the summer. And the gesture of covering a space with plywood was interesting. We'd already been thinking about the relationship between the woodcut and its use in public communication, and the plywood itself became conceptually charged as a material. And so we had set out to try to acquire some of it. So we wrote to the Whitney to see if we could have the plywood that was on their facade. And that's what this piece is made out of. Rob, you want to say a little something?
Yeah, so I mean, when all the, during the first leg of the protests, everything got covered up all over Manhattan. I just got on my bike every morning and took a camera and went out and just took tons of photos and started to sort of notice all the plywood being transformed by graffiti, a lot of it like pro Black Lives Matters, but some of it's just kind of stupid. And I just thought that it'd be really something, we should really try to do something with it. And I wasn't sure what that was. It's always hard to try to do political work. I've always been engaged in like sort of local politics just personally, but it doesn't necessarily like sort of intersect with art, always with artwork and a practice, but this just seemed like an opportunity to sort of have it all line up in a really sort of interesting way. So the photograph is one that I took of a protest in Brooklyn. Zorawar and I chose the wood. We gathered it from the Whitney, and we, really carefully sort of made the photograph work with the graffiti that was already on the plywood, and arranged it. Technically, we carved it on a CNC router in my studio at Prince of Darkness, and the black and the white areas are carved out and just stained a little bit. We were very happy to bring it up to purchase. It came down right in the beginning. Hey, there you go. Click. It came down, and we had a problem with site-specific work because we made it specifically for that spot at 601 Gallery in Lower Manhattan. But the heights of the ceiling just happened to be like the exact same. So all we had to do was add a little bit to the left side to sort of make it work at the mosque. So.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and taking the time. Such a powerful piece, and to see it in person, and also so we'll talk a little bit about the gallery and the formation later, but the exhibit is set up so that you can see it through the windows. The next artist we have is Anna Duffy. Anna, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything. I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you here, Anna?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is Playground Without the Play.
Yeah, I've just been really, during this time, it's really crazy because you go outside and everything's just so different than like before. So really, like whenever I leave my house, I bring my camera and I just kind of shoot whatever, that stands out to me. And so I was looking at all of these weird kind of little things that just all started to add up, and I really wanted to capture some of that.
Yeah, I think you did. Not only did you capture the emptiness, but the difference in the way that we are with each other and the social distancing. And then this one that you call Safe Book Stand, one family on the porch at a time. Be safe. Thank you, Anna. Oh, I think we have a few more actually. Kitchen overload orders. And then we have Anouk Granditz. I don't think Anouk is here, but Anouk is graduated last semester from Purchase. Fish, bee funeral. And then I'd like to introduce Alyssa Monte, who's here to speak about her work. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, thanks, Marissa. Yeah, so I had made all 5 pieces that are in this show during quarantine, and they were for Josh's contemplative photography class. And even like earlier in the semester, we were talking a lot about like uncertainty and what that means. So during quarantine, I kind of felt like I was running out of subject matter. Um, being like stuck in my house. So I started to turn to like myself and my own body, and started to take self-portraits, which is something that I've really like haven't experimented too much with before this. So I combined those images that were self-portraits with photos I had taken on my street during like a walk I had taken. Um, and I kind of wanted the collages to like talk about how I felt like I was melting into my surroundings and like felt very like stuck in this one place because of the circumstances. And then the next 2 images I included, I had my family and friends write down on pieces of paper like what uncertainty meant to them. And I paired the writings with photos I had taken with like slow shutter speeds or like motion blurs, so that the images just had this feeling of like you're not sure what you're looking at, to kind of like emphasize that idea. And I really like the idea of having like the handwriting be personal and like having other people's hands in my work, because it feels like a time where we kind of like need to all be somewhat like collaborative. So that was kind of the thought process for this.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. The next artist we have is Alize Ramirez. I'm not sure if Alize is here, but these are some images from Alize, who's been really out and about in the world, photographing what she sees and really the changes in our daily lives, as well as images like this, which sometimes feel really tranquil and serene. And then sometimes when I look at this image, it feels like a dark, unknown abyss. The next artist in the show is Anne Umimoto, and these are called Signs of the Times. Turn on the lights, walking on eggshells. I don't think Anne's here, but Anne and I met at Westchester Community College, where I used to teach, and I'm happy that our paths have crossed at Purchase as well. The next artist is Bridget Carreau, Purchased Skies, lending, I think, a little bit of a different view toward what we've seen so far, looking a little bit more at the beauty and maybe the silent moments that we have to reflect. Then we have Beth Garamone Ross. These are images that Beth appropriated from a photo essay in the New York Times. They're all different prints. Brooklyn Hospital, Battle of the Virus, which is a digital composite and image transfer. This is another piece that Beth and I were looking at together in the gallery, a digital composite on acrylic and on canvas. And the last one, Are We Still Redlining? Map of New York. Cynthia Lynn is a faculty member in the painting department, and Cynthia could not be here. I'm not sure exactly how she would like the pronunciation of the work to be, but this is Cynthia's painting. I spend a lot of time looking at it and get lost in its kind of different caverns. Cassandra Matthews, I Dreamt I Was a Butterfly. So we have not only photographs, but we have sculpture, we have painting, we have drawing, another one from Cassandra, Underworld. Casey Purtell, I'm not sure if Casey's here, no, but this is Casey's The Last Embrace. Charlotte Wolf is a professor, and I think Charlotte's here. Charlotte, you wanna say anything about these pieces?
Hi, Marissa. Thank
Hi.
you so much for including me in the show and putting this all together. So, and Josh, hi. During the quarantine, I was back at home with my family, and I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. So I just saw this, a lot of moments happened, you know, being out and about, and this is actually a cell phone image. So I thought it was just so indicative of the time. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say.
Great, and then I think you have one more submission, Gutted.
Oh yeah, so Gutted also was kind of showing the like contrast between like what life is like in Charlotte versus life in Brooklyn. And I just thought that this was very sad and in this time in a way that really represented the overall feeling I had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and compositionally, I think I was really drawn into the image. It has all these parallel lines and these different sections in it that kind of we begin to peel apart and study. Thank you, Charlotte, so much for being part of this, and I appreciate you. Thank you. The next artist is Eliana Chiovetta, Untitled Grow, Beauty, and Refractions, taken at Wave Hill. Eliana has another piece called Renewal, Natural Journey from Unrest to Harmony, made at the Bronx Zoo Madagascar exhibit. And then the third, Mad Money or Cashing Out, taken at the sale of a local neighborhood store that was closing, an unfortunate factor of the pandemic with so many mom and pop shops folding. Elizabeth Duran is the next artist, and Elizabeth was in my class last semester. She graduated, but I remember seeing this image banging window, and it really just felt to me like children feel at this time, as well as us, you know, stuck in our homes. And Elizabeth was going out and about in her neighborhood at all different times of the day, as well as photographing at home. And then this waste and the kind of glove that I'm sure we've all seen just tossed aside. Emily Moreno is the next artist, Outdoor Dreaming. I don't know much about these pieces, but they feel like they're a little bit of a digital layering going on here, and resetting, another one by Emily. Eden Russo, Be Careful When You're Dancing on the Roof. Free Daffodils for Next in Line. Untitled. And Faith. Faith, are you here? Did you want to say anything about this piece?
I don't know if I have much to say.
Okay.
For a Lens and Time project. And the original photo that I submitted is like a completely different crop where you don't see the mask, but
Yeah.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being part of the show, Faith, and yes, Faces in Lens and Time, and we loved the color and also the playfulness. Like the mask feels anything but fun, but there's an element of play to this photo that's really great. Gabriela Membreno Berganza, All Black Lives Matter, 2020. Gracie Kalamishi. Gracie has a series with text, and I'll just leave them up for a few minutes so everyone can read them. This one's called Brainwashed. American Student. And I think what's so powerful about photography is really ever since its invention, it really has kind of shaped our experience, not only chronicling our world and recording, but helping us to really kind of understand and piece together our feelings and what's going on in the world. And the next artist that I think did that so poignantly is Granit Kresnicki, and I'd like to introduce Granit.
Thanks, Marissa. So in my work, like I was in isolation, and because of family, I still am in isolation. So I wanted to look at why, like what's the effect of that on people? Because, you know, we're inside, like trying to keep the virus away, but there's other things that sort of start to creep in. And one of those things for me was indifference, like just not caring about anything, like not having the energy or the emotion to be able to look at things and like care about them and really like absorb everything, because it was just so much like that was happening all at once. So I focused on indifference, and I took photos that I thought like were of things that people don't usually care about, but you have some beauty in them, to try to move back from that indifference a little bit, I guess, personally, but also show that like however many people get sick or like die, there's your doorknob is not going to care, it's a permanent fixture.
Thank you, Granit. Granit also put together this as a video, and there's a very powerful monologue that Granit added to it. So I will make this available if people would like to watch that at a later time. Thank you, Granit.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa.
Your face.
Yeah.
The next artist is Gabriel Lopez, and these are really interesting. I think these Muzz the Mummy, kind of telling us tales of world events and anxiety by Gabriel Lopez. Phones in 2020, how they look and how they feel, and really kind of the sickness I think that we may have with our phone, because sometimes it's really the only connection to the world, yet we stare at it and there's nothing really on it. Kindness is Active, another piece by Gabrielle, bringing in not only the pandemic, but the BLM movement, as well as really just listening and acting and treating people with kindness. And then the last is a tribute to the many, many people who have been murdered. Gabby Pisano is the next artist. Gabby's not here, but I really resonated with this photograph. Not only, remembering views of the city, but just feeling that, honestly, like depressing feeling of getting out of bed and laying in bed, and it's sort of another day in this very uncertain world. And here are some more images by Gabby. Young Love. The next artist we have is Hindi. Hi, Hindi. Is Hindi here?
Oh, yes, hi.
Hi, Hindi. Welcome. Would you like to say a few
Thank you.
words on your work?
Sure. Can you scroll through some so I remember? Yeah, thank you so much for putting this on and giving us an opportunity to make art and show it. For me, I needed to get out of the house every single day. And in order to do that, I gave myself, I said, take your camera and get out, like even if it's around the block. And one thing that was really important for me was the feeling of like the whole world in this together. I kept feeling that way, like on Zoom interactions. I've met people from around the world, and I needed to go out and see other people's experiences. It was really important for me, and to show other people who are staying home what's going on. So that's what I have.
Yeah, well, you've definitely been out, and I've been like watching you from afar as you've been posting a lot of images, and commend you for making so many. This, I think, out of all of them, this one like kind of stopped me the most. This like new version of a party, retirement party 2020. Thank you, Hindi. The next artist we have is Hannah Petrakovsky. I don't know if Hannah's here, but this is Family Time. Beta Fish, The New Bird Feeder, and Alyssa Seinfeld Hallbreich. Alyssa, are you here? Do you want to? Hey, Alyssa. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So when we first got into quarantine, my other two images are actually from my photo class with Josh from the spring semester. And Josh just kind of told us just like, don't like let this stop you, like kind of just take what you're given and just go do it and like see what you make. So for me, as somebody who's a portrait person and takes pictures of other people, this was a very challenging thing for me because I felt no motivation. So me and my mom, because we had to get out of the house, would go on like drives almost every weekend, and I would just bring my camera with me and I would get these and just like even trying to escape it, we just kept seeing it everywhere and there was no escape. So it was just like crazy, and the capturing it just felt like so wrong but like so perfect.
Yeah, and I think just following up with like what you're saying, I think it's obviously when we're talking about photography, we think about artistic and technical elements, but I think there's such a historical documentative component to photography, where photography and photographs really are like this primary source material. And maybe they can even have more longevity than written words. The next artist is Isaiah Rivera. And these are some works by Isaiah, untitled. I believe they're all untitled. I'm not sure if Isaiah is here. I don't think so. I think this print has a lot of different things to it. Okay, then we have JD. JD, are you here? No. Yeah, hey JD.
So yeah, these are some of my works, and a lot of them were actually taken before quarantine, but seem to be more relevant now than when I took them. But yeah, so a lot of them, some are like negative scans, some are actual prints. I think this one's a negative scan. And yeah, I originally took it about like human like interaction with the environment, but now it kind of took on a whole new meaning with the pandemic, and I kind of like the meaning it has now.
Yeah, they reminded me of Lee Miller's images, the surreal images Lee Miller made and gas masks. I don't know if you've seen those, anyone. And I think JD, you have a couple more.
Yeah, and these are actually negative scans that I took when, yeah, I actually took these ones recently. I went into the city on a trip and it just felt so empty. And yeah, that was really just what I was trying to create, because that train station used to always be like flooded with people, and now it's just completely like empty.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, JD. The next artist is Judy Fong. Judy made these in the Digital 2 class that I was teaching, and she did a whole series about time, and there was always this hourglass of sand in each of the images. And they ran through just the sort of the slowness and how time can move in all different ways, fast, slow, backwards, forwards. And these are some more images by Judy. Jude Koopman wasn't able to be here, but Jude asked me to read this. With these works, I attempted to understand the value of human life amid the dark times of COVID-19. People have lost loved ones. The plight we continue to speak about is very real. I hope these works will help us to look at lives lost as complex individuals with an infinite story rather than another simple statistic. We can only overcome the challenges facing us if we recognize what we are trying to save for what it truly is. And this is called real. The next one is called overflow. Then we have a visit to the resting place and stroking the surface. The next artist we have is Jacob Vitale. Is Jacob here? Okay, I thought Jacob was going to be here to speak about his work. Well, I don't want to speak on Jacob's work, but this is Street Struck. Turnstile. Train wreck on TV. Newsstand. And bookend. And the last one, Dog Ravine. Caitlin Daher is another artist in the show with painting. Kamau Hawkins Rome, Untitled 2020. There are some more images by Kamau, self-portraits as well. Kate Niclario, Mask 2020, created a series of still lives. And then in the still life seemed to be these objects that became important to us in life. Disinfection. You've got mail. COVID-19. And closure. And then we have Kate Wright. Kate graduated last semester and made this body of work that she submitted to the show, Beginning. Hope. Nana's Room. 6 feet. And coping. What I truly love about the work is the color palette that blends all of these feelings and emotions together. Then we have Lauren, I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. Lauren Grzeka. Lauren, are you here? No? Okay, thought Lauren was going to be here. Well, this is The Shift. And some more images by Lauren that really feel emotionally and psychologically charged. Turmoil 2020. Vacancy 2020. And Untitled. And we have Lauren Improt. I don't believe Lauren could be here, but this is a mask and a bunch of self-portraits that Lauren has been working on. Reality is a Blur. Untitled. And the last one, really great, Multiple Exposure. Oh, one more. Then Lauren Cantor, she also was a recent graduate, Childhood Bed. You know, I feel like so many people were forced to change where they were living and to go home and be in your childhood bed. I feel like Lauren's eyes kind of say it all, the turbulence and the wave of emotions that come back. This one reminded me of a Philip Lorca de Corsia with its light, and then also he made a very similar image of his brother. The Door Opens. Self-portrait, Mind or Mirror. The Love Message. And Moonlight. Michelle Chang is the next artist. Unseen. Looking Out. And Covered. Melissa Efris is the next artist I'd like to introduce. Hi, Melissa, are you here?
Hi.
Hi.
So I just wanted to thank Marissa and Josh for making this space and curating this show. It's been really cool. And I just have a short explanation for the photos. So this first image is part of a photo series called Wilt. All the images in this project contain a pairing of 2 aluminum pots in various settings and acts together. One of the interpretations of this project is that it represents a return to childhood. There is a sense of whimsy with the bright colors and non-traditional scenes depicted with the pots. I felt the surrealness of the Wilt series and the anonymous subject in this image represented the uncertainty of the times we were facing together, as if we were daydreaming. The second image is a multi-tone self-portrait depicting a soft gesture of my arm and hand. This particular fragment could feel like a distancing from the self as the body overlaps itself and traces elsewhere. There is a thin white line at the left that my hand barely touches in a gentle sort of distant caress. This image may feel reminiscent of the dissociative nature coming with the pandemic. It calls for us to be aware, but the intensity of the situation also creates the desire and need to take space from it. In the third piece, a black and white self-portrait where I hold an apple. Oh, I guess they're a different order. I'll go back.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. So in this grid, there is the ritual of brushing one's hair. Because of the pandemic, routines have been disrupted. This sequence globally resonates with that principle as the hair goes through being brushed, combed through messily with the subject's fingers, and finally smoothed out. Many people brush their hair regularly, tend to it throughout the day, and fidget with it nervously in stressful situations. Engaging with the hair lends itself to feeling playful, while also representing attention by it being in these different conditions. The subject's face is not seen, and they act as an anonymous stand-in for common events and rituals being reinvented and taking on new meaning. The next image. So this image, it's a black and white self-portrait where I hold an apple in my mouth. My face is wide and distorted. Much like how 2020 has strayed from what everyone's expectations could have been, truth has taken on new meaning. Here, disillusionment is represented. My eyes are bulbous and staring at something out of view. It's as if they could be looking to a higher power for an answer. And then this image is another self-portrait where I depict myself looking at my reflection in a bathroom mirror. There is a stoic quality to my expression as I examine myself. During this unpredictable time, everyone has been faced with confronting their feelings and actions in one way or another. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was very well said. The next artist that we have is Mason Mason, some untitled images. And then we have Maya Motka. Is Maya here? I don't want to put Maya on the spot. Table for two. Maya also has some other images, desolate field, as well as curbside dining. And the last one, delivery 2020. Magnolia Mulvihill. I don't think Magnolia is going to speak on her work, but what I really loved about this is not only the lighting, but showing us the dorm room and then the large format camera right there. And even something like this, which is a still life indicative of like eating while you're online and learning and kind of the new way that we are in. And some more images by Magnolia, Untitled 2020. And another untitled. And the final. Monica Philbin was here for a few minutes, but had to leave. Monica is a grad last semester from the photo department, and this is called Found as You Left It. And then the other is called Let Some Light In. And Calm. I think really what's so powerful about photography is its ability to just navigate like our humanity, our connection, our identity, memory, presence, and really the experience of what is going on in the world at this time. With Marissa Vazquez, we see max occupancy, no more than 335 people, and then not one person. Another image by Waterpark 2020. Nancy Bowen, faculty, submitted this, made in Grand Army Plaza, June 2020, during a a protest. Nikita Gotov, I really loved how this mimicked the famous George Seurat Sunday Afternoon, and then Nikita put masks on everyone with the very kind of blunt title. And the other one by Nikita, Times Square Protest 2020. The next artist I'd love to introduce is Orpheus Acosta. Hey, Orpheus.
Hey.
Hey.
All right. So what is it? My mentor told me to shoot what I know, and like, during this whole pandemic, I've just been feeling really depressed, and I was just like, well, how to like how to express that depression, and like how to express like all these feelings, and what better way than through photography, I feel. So what I ended up doing was like everywhere I went, I would just always carry a camera with me. And like in this interaction, my mom was interacting with my sister who came to visit. And like I was initially going to capture my sister and her fiance, but my mom had this very interesting expression even with her mask on, and like how she was like presenting her artwork to my sister, because my sister is an art teacher and stuff. And yeah, I'm not too sure if they're okay. And with this one, I went to a Chinese restaurant which just recently opened up again, and they would have everyone outside waiting, and like I was just trying to aim to like kind of not give a face to what exactly is happening, because like some people say that it's the Wuhan virus, whilst others say it's COVID-19. And I just wanted to like give that I can't say the word, but anonymity, yeah, to the whole scene of it. This one was while I was at work, and what I was trying to convey was just this sense of like dread, almost like this dread and sadness, where it's just like there's this playfulness that's kind of dead, with the subject looking at a deflated like swimming pool, and yeah. This one, I found it interesting because it was, people still have to take smoke breaks during the pandemic and go on break. And it was just like this sole subject that I saw while I was passing through a parking lot. So I decided to pull over and snap this photo. And this one, I like that everyone has like put up or like, at least in my neighborhood, behind every stop sign, they've put up hope. And every time I stop, I see it, and it kind of portrays this feeling of like things will get better, and hopefully will.
Thank you so much, Orpheus.
No problem, thank you.
This is Olivia Cirzega. I'm not sure if Olivia wants to speak on her work, but this is Untitled 2020. This is another image Olivia made at a protest that she attended. Another image, street, and I think the last image, Untitled 2020. Paige Aronson is the next artist with a soul piece that was submitted called Ambivalence. Richard Wagner, The Road, Part 1 and 2. When I looked at these, like the first one looked peaceful and serene, and then the second one felt like kind of very ominous with these dark skies. And the third by Richard Wagner, Time, and the empty Purchase campus. Renee Weaver is the next artist I'd like to introduce to speak on their work.
Hi. So this is an image that was taken very early on during quarantine, and the darkness surrounded by a single body is really important to display in this one. This was taken before quarantine, but it also resonates with the current time. So this piece is referencing Francisca Woodman, whose photography addresses personal uncertainty, but instead I address both one's personal and social uncertainty. The image was created by analyzing Woodman's work's definitions and characteristics to find a respectful compromise, a narrative that is meaningful and compelling, such as unconventional beauty, to not conform to conventional beauty standards, but to embrace it and express it. Yeah, these are more observational that I've done during quarantine.
Well, thank you so much, Renee. There's definitely a surreal quality, and I see the effect of Woodman, as well as this one, which I think is really one of the most beautiful ones to end with. Thank you, Renee. Solana Alicea, Purple Clouds 2020, Green Boat, and Reflection. I don't know if Solana's here, but Solana's just so positive, and I appreciate that beauty that Solana brings to her work. The next artist is Simone Sanchez that I'd like to introduce. Hi, Simone. Welcome.
Thank you again. And I was kind of working when we got into like quarantine and the whole lockdown with the idea of like all this super sudden change that kind of got thrown onto everybody. And I don't deal well with change like at all. And I was like having a lot of problems making art that I was super connected to. And I was making a lot of stuff that was kind of just done for the sake of I have an assignment and it needs to be done. So I decided to take pictures of how I was actually feeling, which was I don't want to do anything. I want to stay in my bed and like watch time pass basically. And so I decided to work with that feeling of just kind of being dejected and not really feeling connected to anything or anyone. And I moved out of that now. I'm making work again and I'm feeling a lot better, but I kind of just wanted to work with that idea.
I think you worked in a very poignant way with that idea. And I think we all feel that in different levels in different ways. The next is Stephen Small. You need a mask, really? Yes, we are open. And in the queue, 1 and 2. Then we have Theo Hagel, Black Square. Be safe. Anxious. And blow up. Tom Palco. I'm not sure if Tom's here, but Tom was in my class last semester and was very interested in kind of the everyday, ordinary, mundane. And that's kind of what we see. But then with the third image, it's this like a religious figure just kind of like coming out, maybe giving us a message or bringing us something. I'm not sure what. Thank you, Hindi. The next artist I'd love to introduce is Veronica Cruz. Hi, Veronica.
Hello. So with this work, I started this series not really knowing where I was going with it, but I had an idea. And obviously when COVID hit and then we were all forced in quarantine, I didn't necessarily have any distractions left. And I relied on those distractions to really get me to not think about anything personal. So I started to take photos of shadows representing just how long the days felt. And I didn't enjoy them once I came back to it, and I needed to create something more personal. And I allowed myself to be more vulnerable, where I ended up photographing a lot of my emotions that I kept hiding for so many years, of whether it was being lost or confused, overwhelmed, helpless, suffocated. And I think it's just it's a lot to work on, and it definitely took a huge toll on me where I had hit rock bottom recently. So before I got any actual help, this was what was helping me, was really putting out such a vulnerable side of me with my work.
Well, thank you for sharing, Veronica. And I think when Josh and Sonia and I saw this image, I think we all felt that it really encapsulated this idea of seeing through uncertainty on so many levels. And thank you for sharing these very evocative and psychologically charged, beautiful portraits. Then we have Victoria Young, Balloon Animal. I Back, You Love. It's Okay to Look. And Please Help. Zoe Manolo leads up the remaining two artists with Untitled, 2020. Another untitled image by Zoe. And a few more of Zoe's. And the last of 63 artists and 230 submissions is Zanaya Sweeney, showing us Dining Room School. You know, I am always, and I think will forever be, an advocate of the power of photography, really to spark, to make us more aware, to inform us, to educate us, and maybe sometime really propel real action and change. And it forces us to look at what is going on in ourselves and in the greater world around us. We're gonna wrap up, I think, with showing you the installation at the Moss Gallery, which is open by appointment only. And maybe Josh, you want to talk a little bit about the aesthetic, because it was hugely kind of a huge contribution from you with that guidance and the shaping of how it looked.
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. That was just so great. And first off, I just want to sort of say, as Marissa and I planned this conversation, we had set it so that, it's a little confession, that we were going to go back and forth, but I was quiet because, Marissa, you were doing such a beautiful job just going through all of the work and so poignantly talking about it, that I felt like you didn't need to hear from me. Thank you for that. That was really fantastic. So the exhibition was, the idea of it obviously came from, it was Marissa's genesis. And then I guess my real contribution came in the form of sort of thinking about, there was a show after 9/11 called Here Is New York. And in it, there was an empty space in Soho that was taken over. And basically it was given to anyone who wanted to respond to what was going on, to sort of how they were experiencing that time period. And as you would come on any given day, the show would have evolved, and as more works were printed. And I think we evolved into sort of seeing this show in a very similar way, where as the works would come in, we didn't want to quiet any voices, and we really wanted to put the works that came up as they came in and as they evolved. You know, I think one of the big moments for us was the moment that Rob and Zohar presented their piece that you can see right there, because, you know, as they showed us the work that they were doing, it actually became really clear to us that with the exception of I think maybe two students, maybe Olivia and Hindi, for the most part, people were kind of in quarantine and really sort of looking very quietly at their own world. And so then we began to start to see this as a conversation that began to happen between the piece the installation on the plywood that really seemed like it was in response to this larger movement that has been brewing in the world for a long time, and the pandemic and distance learning and all of the things that that came out of the quietness of sitting with our thoughts and reflecting on what it means to sort of take a step outside. And so I think the show became really kind of a beautiful conversation between these two worlds, and which kind of echoed, I think, Marissa and I's conversations that we were having, because it really sort of felt like there were these different things that were happening, and we wanted to have a conversation with both of these things. And I think the show, thanks to all of you that so courageously looked at your worlds and yourselves and what is going on around you, I think the show was so successful because of that.
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for helping this come a vision. And thank you so much, Sonia, for just doing so much work and helping us like have this vision come to fruition. In addition, the entire exhibit is online and will be online, and we will be posting this panel as well. And just a real like acknowledgement to all the artists and everyone who participated in this. And I wrote in a letter, Josh and I wrote to all of the artists in the show, looking at the works individually, they're poignant and strong, and collectively they feel like a mighty force. And personally, it was really so wonderful to really feel involved with something during this time when I too feel isolated. So thank you all so very much for being here and for being part of it. Does anyone have any, I guess I'll open it up to anyone who wants to have any comments or questions, or any questions for individual artists or anything. Anyone? No? Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Bud.
And just a quick thank you to Days of Action for
yes,
making this possible. And yeah, and thank you all. I think that we can, through all of this hard work, we can shift our culture, and I think we can shift our culture through looking at art. And so, yeah, thank you all.
thank you all so much.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.